Wrestling Roundtable Radio is back on the air, and I am exhausted. Up late last night getting the last radio edit online and doing lots of other projects, and I know you've been wondering where the other Invasion show is. Well, that's what happens when you do so many shows. It gets a little backed up, and hopefully I'll be able to start work on that this week. Maybe it'll be online this week or next week, sometime soon, hopefully. But I haven't forgotten about it, and I haven't forgotten about you. Thank you for listening, and I want to hear your thoughts here live on blogtalkradio.com/Wrestling Roundtable. The number is 347-857-4647. Simulcast on our partners over at Go Fight Live, and on WrestlingRoundtable.com, the hub for everything Wrestling Roundtable. Columns, bios, recaps, message board, and lots more. Introducing the panel for the night, an all-wrestling night. First up is Will Brooks. Hello, Will.
Hello, everybody. I want to give a quick shout-out to Bernard Hopkins for being 46 years old and the new light heavyweight champion of boxing. I represent Philadelphia very well, and I love the guy. He's my favorite boxer of all time, and I'm very happy he's won. And it's nice to see that senior citizens can still do something in the world.
Especially in wrestling. Will Brooks is in our chat room over at WrestlingRoundtable.com every Monday night during Raw. And Raw from last night we will be talking about later on. The other Will Vafides, is on the air as well. What have you been up to, Will Vafides?
I got my brand new camera. I've been shooting, and amazingly, I'm shooting some amazing TLD episodes at TLDWrestling.com, and my birthday just passed 3 weeks ago. That means we only have 320-something days left to my 27th birthday. I cannot wait. And also, I just bought some great stuff off Amazon.com/Wrestling Roundtable, and it came like in 2 days. That's awesome. Yeah.
Good job, and everyone should do the same. If you want to get anything off of Amazon.com, you can do it through our Amazon store. While you're at WrestlingRoundtable.com shopping, you can get the Wrestling Roundtable t-shirt and show your support live at wrestling shows. Show it off to other fans and get them involved in this community that we're trying to create here, where we exchange ideas and concepts from wrestling's past, present, and future, as well as mixed martial arts, as you know. And when we cover wrestling, we also cover the independents, and our resident independent expert is from Chicago, our radio panelist, Coriander Ake. Hello, Corey.
Hello, Eric. Hello, everyone.
Well, we want to dive right into it. Lots of events have gone on the past few weeks, and I want to go more or less in sequential order. Maybe not, but let's give it a little shot. I want to start off with TNA Sacrifice 2011. Of course, by the time we get to the next TNA pay-per-view, it might not even be TNA. It might just be straight-up Impact Wrestling. They have been slowly making that gradual transition, thankfully, a transition that, frankly, should have been done back in the early stages of TNA's existence before they even went on the air in the summer of 2002. I never understood how they could choose this name. Obviously, Vince Russo's fingerprints are all over it. It fits right in line with everything else that he comes up with. His little funny Beavis and Butthead style Terry Invitational Tournament, TIT, and Sports Entertainment Extreme, Sex, and Pretty Mean Sisters, PMS, Total Nonstop Action, TNA. Hulk Hogan just did an interview saying that it sounds ridiculous going to sponsors trying to get them on board and having to spend the first 10 minutes explaining that TNA is not a porn company. And I totally understand what he means by that, but what's in a name? I guess a lot. They just switched over their Twitter and YouTube to Impact Wrestling, and like I said, by the time the next pay-per-view comes around, it could just be the Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, because it is from now the Impact Wrestling Zone, Sacrifice 2011. Corey, want to dive right into the title match, the X Division title match, I should say. Kazarian defending against Max Buck. People upset that they're doing a dissension angle with the Young Bucks because they're a pretty good tag team, not getting too much spotlight or push, I should say, in and of themselves, but they're getting some singles action last time in a Ultimate X match. But how did Max Buck do in this unsuccessful effort to claim the X title from Kazarian?
For the most part, this match was pretty good. And then midway through, it just became a big botch fest where Kazarian dropped Max on his neck really weird from the outside, and Max had tried to go for a different move and almost killed himself in the process. and that was a little bit difficult to watch. However, a majority of this match was pretty good. So I have to give it to TNA. This was one of their stronger
Impact
matches.
Wrestling.
Oh, excuse me, Impact Wrestling. I'll give it to Impact Wrestling. This was not too bad, but the last 5 minutes of the match definitely could have been rebooked.
I'm actually kind of the opposite way on that one. No one knows who the hell Max Buck is, and no one had a reason to care because he was barely on TV, and when you look at him against Kazarian, he looks like a nobody. They gave him no steam at all to get into that match. I had no feeling in that match. And the beginning was very slow. The end, where the botch fest, according to her, began, actually was the better part of the match. They did some pretty cool moves, and I thought the ending was actually pretty good, but the problem is that the wrong guy was in that match. Robbie E. is more entertaining and just as a good wrestler, maybe better than him. I just was not a fan of that match. I just don't think there was a reason for it, and I think Kazarian retaining was the right thing. Of course, that didn't last, but at least Kazarian retained it, because if Max Buck won, it would have killed Kazarian as a character and as a person.
At least as of a few years ago, wrestling was really big in Italy, and TNA, Impact Wrestling, does really well internationally, so maybe now is the time to do a house show in Italy, main evented by Robbie E., since the situation's over there now. Moving on, the tag title match was Beer Money defending against, well, two former tag team champions, but with different partners, Matt Hardy, slimmed down in the past couple months, and the returning Chris Harris, not the Chris Harris of the Wrestling Roundtable, but Chris Harris, formerly of America's Most Wanted. I think the reveal was pretty cool on Impact. How did the chemistry work out with James Storm and Chris Harris, Corey, this time against each other instead of teaming?
The chemistry between these two wrestlers was better than the overall match. I think that for once TNA has done something right in how they're trying to bring back Wildcat Chris Harris, where they've pretty much picked up where they left off, acknowledging right away that he used to be part of America's Most Wanted with James Storm. I think one thing that should be noted is how the crowd received it. The crowd took very well to him, and then halfway through the match, we hear this chat, "Knock, knock, who's there? Braden Walker," acknowledging his past from not ECW that WWE has produced. This could branch out into a very good storyline if they let it. I don't think this should have been a tag match. I don't think the title should have been on the line. I am happy Beer Money won.
Why not?
If you're going to do a tag title match, there should be a better storyline than this.
Then what? It's a perfect storyline for it. Like I said, first of all, Hardy and Chris Harris are both former tag champions, maybe with separate partners, but former tag champions, and he brought back Chris Harris's former partner in one of the top acts that TNA had in its past, America's Most Wanted. What exactly doesn't justify a tag title match here?
What they should have done is a singles match between James Storm and Chris Harris, then a tag title match at the next pay-per-view. But other than that, I am happy that Beer Money retained.
Well, them retaining seems to indicate that it's not going to go any further, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But your thoughts on the match, Will Vafidez?
The biggest problem was Chris Harris came back 3 days before the pay-per-view. As much of a surprise as that was, there was, again, no build to that match other than Matt Hardy wanted to challenge him. It was good. It would have been really good if they got that, like they did that the night after the other pay-per-view. That would have, to me, would have meant more if they did that, because if I had no idea he was on the show until I watched the show. I'm dead serious on that. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, the match was good. Chris Harris looks like he gained a little bit of weight, though. So it did look a little bit bigger.
He found the weight that Matt Hardy lost, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Matt Hardy's actually doing a lot better job than he did when he first started, so I have to give him credit for that. Chris Harris, there would have been a good feud between the two guys. Problem is AMW was a pretty long time ago. People were more invested in that match than most of the other matches because there was history there. And they showed a great package of AMW. But again, they should have given that a little more time. That's the kind of feud that could last a good 2 to 3 months based on just the history of those two guys. So,
can you believe that TNA's been around 9 years?
Yeah.
It seems like a dream.
Moving on,
Okay.
Tommy Dreamer defeated AJ Styles in a no DQ match. Tommy Dreamer and the match style, I guess that suits him. But AJ Styles can hang in there too. How do you think it worked out? Dreamer and AJ, Corey.
I'm not really big on how they've turned Tommy Dreamer heel. I think this was absolutely the wrong time to turn him heel. They've got too many heels as is. Parts of this match were good. Parts of this match were a little bit confusing. Dreamer was sporting a new outfit that some people say is Goldust inspired. I'm not quite sure what to make of it myself. I was not too thrilled because AJ Styles is, of course, injured, and this match really did aggravate that neck injury. So it was a little bit...
Are you kidding, Corey? They wouldn't be putting him in there if he was injured. He came back for a reason, because he had time off and he's healed.
I don't know. He's still sporting a neck brace and he's got tendon damage.
It's a fucking storyline. Wilva Fidesz.
Thank you. Good for Dreamer, because he hasn't been doing anything for a while. I'm glad he got...
Something happened with your phone, Will. I can barely hear you.
It was good that he got some rub from TNA, that he's doing something. And I think the heel role, I like him in that, because it's something totally different. I can't remember the last time he was a heel, other than the Great Invasion storyline of 2000.
Well, you'd have to go further back to from like the early days of ECW.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I liked why. They explained the story on the next night on why he's acting the way he is. But what's good about the AJ thing is that AJ got attacked by Bully Ray, so that's how he lost. Basically, it was because of him. And they're continuing that storyline forward, which is good. I think it's one of the best storylines they got going right now. And I think the attack, his speech the next night on Impact Wrestling was good. I like the match. I like the idea of AJ losing, taking a loss, because it doesn't hurt him. It just builds Dreamer and the whole storyline even more. So I think that was the right call.
Speaking of calls, I see lots of you are ready to call in, but let's get through the TNA pay-per-view first, and then I'll go to some calls. How about that? Chyna, somehow using that name. Wasn't she China Doll in 02 or whatever? But yeah, it's Chyna with a Y. Returned to wrestling. I was happy to see her. I've always been a fan of Chyna, and I thought the segment that she debuted in was really well done, with this initiative to emphasize the word wrestling, unlike WWE. Mick Foley came out as the network executive and cut a really good promo on Flair and Hogan, trying to, I guess, boost the campaign of Wrestling Matters, but in a good way, with the I saw you win the title in Madison Square Garden, I saw you against Steamboat in Baton Rouge. That was cool. And I really liked the way that the letters appeared on the screen, so it didn't say China immediately, and you couldn't really tell that it was the word China until the C popped up. And then she came in, and I was happy to see her. As for the match, though, on the pay-per-view, she looked pretty slow, pretty rusty, not very great. Wasn't very impressed, but at least she didn't completely mess up some of the moves that she did, and it's kind of cute to see her do a pedigree, that's for sure. Standard tag match, more or less, carried by Angle and Jarrett and Karen playing pretty good heels, although a little bit too much stalling, just a little bit. But I would think that this ending would have been pretty definitive, but yet they're going to do Angle and Jarrett again on the next pay-per-view. Jesus Christ, how many pay-per-views are they going to stretch this out to? Shouldn't this have been the blow-off, and how do you think the match was, Corey?
This is the best Chyna has looked in her entire career. I must give her that.
Absolutely not.
I
Absolutely
don't know. I think she looked cute. She had a very nice outfit. She looked really good. Now the match.
If you like collagen injections.
I didn't say natural. I said good. Now I think
old surgery face looked better in 02 when she fought in Japan, but that's another thing.
The match, I think, would have been better if anybody had taught Karen Angle how to wrestle. She was really the main weak point in this match.
Why does she need to learn how to wrestle? All she was there to do was get beat up.
I was about to say that.
Well, if you're going to stick the stupid bitch in the ring, I would hope that you would teach her how to wrestle first.
She didn't have to wrestle. That was not her role in this match. In fact, that's the whole point of the storyline, is for her to get put in there to get her ass beat. Wilva Fidesz.
Well, this was all about entertainment. This was not about having a good wrestling match. She did a very good job for the amount of time she was away from the ring. So I thought she did a good job. Yeah, she's not going to be Chyna from 10 years ago. But don't even expect that. She did a very good job. I thought the match was entertaining. I love the aspect of it. I think this made it a lot different from the other matches they've had. Karen did a great job selling the ankle lock. She took the pedigree pretty well. That was the best match on the card. And I mean it as, I'm not saying a wrestling match. I'm saying the one that entertained me the most. So,
yeah, but come on, Kurt Angle did a good job of holding it together and doing the majority of the work.
Oh, absolutely. Jarrett and Angle are masters in the ring.
They have good chemistry together.
They have chemistry. They know how to put on a good match. They know how to entertain you. And this is the first win Angle got in the whole series of these guys. So it was a good win. It was a great moment to watch, to see Chyna. I think that might be the only time we see her, but it was a good job overall, and I loved the match. I think Cara Angle the next night sold it very well. She is a top performer, a top heel. I think she's more over, I would say, but the crowd being that they hate her the most than Jarrett. You know,
okay,
almost as equal.
That right there is the main problem. The non-wrestler is your top heel. That is a big, big problem.
But this storyline takes it a little further than most other storylines, which is why people hate Jarrett. I think Jarrett's the top heel overall in the company, but Karen is valet, so of course she's going to be just as up there as he is.
The valet is not supposed to outshine the wrestler, though. The top heel should be Jeff Jarrett.
She's not. She's not outshining him. I think they have equal partnership in what they've been doing. He's the one coming out there talking about the kids. He's talking about their marriage. He's talking about how bad of a father Kurt Angle was. He's doing all the work, and Karen's just there. But she adds an element to the storyline, because if you don't have her there, if she wasn't there the entire time, the storyline probably would have never really gotten over as far as it has.
Besides, if a non-wrestler being the top heel is a problem, WWE's got it much worse between Michael Cole, Vicky Guerrero, and the laptop. But that being said, let's not forget that the top golden period of our lifetimes as far as money was between Austin McMahon, a non-wrestler. Moving on, the main event was the champion Sting defending against Rob Van Dam. I guess the first time they met was last year. If you remember when Van Dam debuted in TNA and it lasted like 4 seconds? Well, they finally did one-on-one on pay-per-view. How did it turn out, Corey?
Okay. It was not a bad match. It was okay. I really do want to see some more names make the main event, though. Because
like?
Anybody younger than RVD and Sting?
Okay. Will Vafides?
I agree. It was like an okay match. Not a great main event match, I can tell you that. Definitely for a world title match. I think the biggest problem is just two different styles. They really don't mesh well together. Anderson and Sting is going to have a much better chemistry. The worst part, though, is that Rob Van Dam was waiting a long time for this title shot. This was his big moment, and it didn't shine. Now he's going to be stuck in a bad storyline, either probably with maybe Tommy Dreamer, I'm guessing. You know,
well, a lot of people have been saying, first of all, that this pay-per-view really wasn't that good. But in addition to that, they've also been saying, and that's just from most of the reviews. I'm not saying yes or no, but that's just from the majority of what I read, not giving a good review to this one. But they've also been accusing Rob Van Dam of pretty much just collecting a paycheck and phoning in these performances. I don't think he's had really one blow-away match yet in TNA in his whole first year. So what do you think about that?
No, no, he really hasn't. I don't think he's brought anybody new to say, oh, Rob Van Dam, I want to watch him. And he hasn't really done anything to really impact wrestling. It's still called TNA, by the way. But
for the time being.
Yeah, he doesn't stand out, but it's cool to have him there, I guess. Mm-hmm. He's good for a poster. I mean, that's what he's good for, but he's not like a top draw. So,
well,
I mean,
it's a shame because Van Dam was a really good performer, even up until recently, and you'd think that putting him in there with some of these guys like Sting can still go sometimes, I guess, depending on who he's put in there with. And you'd think that Van Dam and AJ would be a natural blow-away pay-per-view main event, even someone like Van Dam and Samoa Joe, but Joe wasn't even on this show. Joe who? That's enough for TNA or Impact Wrestling, whatever it's called. So before we move on, want to get to some callers. Felix in New York, hello.
Hey, yo, what's up?
What's on your mind, Felix the Cake?
Now, I know you guys haven't mentioned him yet, but I want to talk about Macho Man for a minute.
Gee, I'm surprised.
Nah.
We will be talking about Macho Man later on, but you can have the floor if you like.
There's two moments that I always remember. One was WrestleMania 10, where after Bret Hart won the title, and all those guys came in and celebrated with him, and it was Macho Man that stood out. He made that moment look cool. Mm-hmm. And second moment was Spring Stampede 99. He was the special referee in the Fatal 4-Way match between Hogan, Flair, DDP, and Sting when he was still good. And Flair had Sting in the figure 4, and Macho Man kicked Sting off the ropes. And for some reason, he gives Flair the diving elbow drop while he still had Sting in the figure 4. And I just thought that was hilarious. And
hey, you never liked Flair, I guess.
Hey, try
You know my favorite part about that? Sting had been gone, I believe, since Havoc 98. He took some time off and healed up. He just came back to, and this is when they had the new Nitro logo and set with the Star Trek logo and everything. So Sting makes his comeback on Nitro, and he points up at the screen, and all of a sudden it goes to this video that fills the arena and fills the screen with Macho Man's voice, and he was announcing, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sting, Diamond Dallas Page, and then you probably remember, and I'm going to be the referee. That was such a cool line. It's our New York boys because we got Dominic in Staten Island. Hello.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
What's on your mind, Dom?
All right, well, quick, get TNA out of the way. If they are going to get back to the basics and get back to wrestling, the answer is that they have ridiculous storylines, too, like Angelina Witch, and a couple months ago they had Samoa Joe being the Green Hornet, Kato was his sidekick, so they got to drop stuff like that.
Yeah, that went nowhere.
Everyone's going to call, is going to mention that their favorite Macho Man moment. I've said this before on the Facebook discussion page that WrestleMania 4 was my introduction to wrestling.
Mm-hmm. That's a long introduction.
Yeah, Macho Man winning that tournament, that's what, I was 4 years old at the time, that's what got me hooked on wrestling. So that's something, that's a memory that'll be with me for a long time.
Excellent. Teresa Alvarez, hello.
Hi, Eric.
The model of our Wrestling Roundtable t-shirt. You've seen her on WrestlingRoundtable.com, and what a great job she does. But I think you put anything on you, and you'll look great. You look even better in person, Teresa. And
oh, my goodness.
You attended the ROH Revolution USA show in Dearborn, Michigan. You told me that you'd been going to Ring of Honor shows in Detroit for a while, have you?
My brother got me hooked on it. It was really his thing in the beginning because I was normally just a dedicated WWE fan, and then he got me hooked on ROH, and so he was come to the show with me, and ever since then I've been hooked.
How many shows have you gone to in Dearborn?
So far, just 4.
Just 4? It's more than some people. Well, I wanted to hear some of your thoughts on the last swing through Dearborn, specifically a couple matches, and if there's anything else on your mind, you can throw them out. But the Briscoes fought and defeated the All Night Express of Kenny King and Rhett Titus in a first blood match. This feud has been interesting and good, and what I like about it is I always enjoy wrestling feuds that are heated and create stars that don't involve belts. It's pretty cool because most of the time it's the standard, I'm better than you and I'm going to beat you for the title sort of thing. But in this case, they're taking a team with the All Night Express and elevating it with this blood feud with the established Briscoes. And I thought it was real well done. Wasn't too much of a fan of Kenny King's profanity-laced promo afterwards, but the match itself was good.
I think he overdid it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was really necessary. After, I don't know. I think it made the audience feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
The people that I was sitting around, we were just kind of was that necessary? I didn't really care about any of the matches. Yes, ROH is very entertaining to me, but some of the matches do not stand out to me. But I did have 2 that really did stand out. But I do have to say about the Briscoes, I do not like them as being heels. I don't like that. For some reason, they pull me in more when they're faces. I just don't like them being heels. Looking at them, they come off as they have this angry face all the time. So maybe it helps with the heel character. I don't like them being heels. It just pulls away from my liking them.
Another tag match was the main event of the Kings of Wrestling defeating the American Wolves. Of course, one half of the American Wolves now is the champion Eddie Edwards, and dissension started afterwards between Eddie and Davey. This was a rematch from a really good match they had in Boston back in December. What are your feelings on the main event, Teresa?
I liked it. It was it was there. I think that's what I can say. It was there. The ending, I think it was bound to happen. That's what that was. It was bound to happen. You can hear very mixed reviews off it.
You haven't been very praiseful of this show so far, and yet you've gone to a whole bunch of Ring of Honor shows. What drew you in? What made you want to keep coming back?
Colt Cabana. That guy, he's my favorite. I love me some Colt Cabana, and I just saw him at a JCW show last Saturday. His character just brings me in. My brother was telling me about him, and then as soon as we went to the show, he's like, there's Colt, El Generico. So I'm like, oh, okay, we have all these characters and whatnot. They put on a good show.
So you go to Juggalo Championship Wrestling show, too?
My first time was last Saturday. I'm not gonna lie. He plays a police officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was their pay-per-view, right?
Yes. He was arresting wrestlers. Yeah, that's Colt.
Well, how does a JCW show compare to an ROH show?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you want my honest opinion?
No, I want you to lie. Of course we want your honest opinion.
Very funny. You know I'm all about being professional. I'm all about WWE, how professional they are and whatnot. And going to ROH, they step up to that level. So I like them for that. I do like ROH because they're more friendlier. They have a good group of people that work for their company. JCW is nothing but a bunch of juggalos that go to watch. Me and my friend from OVW, him and I attended the show together. We went backstage, and the wrestlers that were there, they're all pretty nice, but the crowd that they have matches in front of, they're more so in tune to the music and the entrance rather than watching the actual match and seeing what's going on, seeing what's required inside of that match. They're just really, they're putting on concerts and getting the crowd hyped, but it's really no substance there. Like, are you just here to just sing your favorite song, or are you here to watch wrestling? Between ROH and JCW, JCW is more of like a concert with wrestlers, and then ROH is more like, oh, we're wrestlers that have heart and a passion for this.
Interesting. I'm also interested in what you've been up to. You seem like the busiest lady in Michigan.
I am, at only 20. So I got booked to do the new Jason Segel and Emily Blunt movie. I'm doing that when I come back home from vacation, June 7th, for my Miss Great Lakes. I've been doing nothing but appearances and events. A couple weeks ago, I was the special guest preschool storytime reader, and I co-hosted this big event, concert. So, yeah, I've been doing things like that, signing autographs. I signed my first autograph, so I was really excited.
And you're going to be doing, I believe, the same at XSU coming up.
Yes, I am. Alana Rose. I've been on hiatus for a little bit. I've been in between shows because I am living 2 different lives, and people think that's crazy to be a beauty queen and also be a wrestler. But I take control of my life. But, yeah.
It's not so weird. Colt Cabana does it all the time.
Colt Cabana, yay. No, but I will be at the show June 5th. Alana Rose will be there. Now, I have had some matches. I'm being trained right now by an OVW superstar. I've been getting
Superstar I don't think would be the word, but go ahead.
You know what I mean. Anyway, he's been training me really well. I've been taking some crap from the company for leaving to do something else, but I have to do what I have to do. I'm on a contract, and I can't really be beating my body up right now. When my contract's up, I will be back in action, getting beat up, beating people up. That's what they allow me to do now. They allow me to beat people up now instead of getting hit. But my partner, he accidentally hit me in the face. He's a big boy, and he hit me in the nose, dead in the nose. That wasn't the best feeling.
Okay, well, I hope you don't get hit in the face too much longer, and hope you don't take that much more damage. And thanks for chiming in, and we always want to know what you're up to, Teresa. I didn't expect to be talking about juggalos tonight, but we did, and I want to keep the indie talk moving for a little bit, because, Corey, you just recently attended AAW's Path of Destruction pay-per-view, which is available on Go Fight Live, our partners. Is it worth paying for?
AAW Epic is very much worth paying for. If you've lost faith in wrestling in any form, I would definitely suggest getting it. It's only $10, and you get 9 matches for it. You get a lot of names with it, too. This show had a who's who of ECW, TNA, and general indie names. There was just everybody there, and there were some WWE names as well. I really recommend this event.
You attended it. I want to hear about some specific matches. The Irish Airborne fought Jimmy Jacobs and Dan Lawrence in a cage match. How did that turn out?
That was really cool. That was a very cool match to see live. It's very interesting to see the growth in Dan Lawrence. When I first started watching AAW, he just seemed so ordinary, but now he's really coming into his own. He's got his own style. I really can't say enough goodness about Dan Lawrence. He's an incredible athlete. Irish Airborne really put on their best defense in this one. It was a very good match to see live.
Well, Heart of Darkness 27 in our chat room says AAW is awesome. AAW also presented the Mischief versus Dustin Diamond match.
It was hysterical live. Oh, Dustin actually plays a very good heel. Can't wrestle if it was the end of the world, but he plays an incredibly good heel. He really got the crowd super
But isn't that a bad thing? You just said the top heel in TNA is not a wrestler.
He actually wrestled, though. He tried to wrestle, and I have to give him that. He was a very good heel, and not too bad as a wrestler. I was quite surprised.
Well, he did train on Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling.
Oh, and we know how prestigious that is. In his corner were Aaron and the Awesome Threesome, who are very big names up here in Chicago. Aaron,
the
of course,
Awesome Threesome?
That's what they're called, the Awesome Threesome.
I've had a few of those.
That's none of my business. But this was a really fun match. I don't want to spoil the ending, but Joel Gertner gets involved, and it was really...
Oh, well, bought right there.
It was a fun match, and Mischief, she's just amazing to see live. If you guys think she's awesome on the Shimmer DVDs, you need to see her live.
Or Pro Wrestling Respect DVDs. Hey, come on.
Damn straight you got to get those Pro Wrestling Respect DVDs. She is awesome. She is one of my top favorite wrestlers of all time.
Well, actually, speaking of Mischief, Pro Wrestling Respect, and Go Fight Live, they're available on Go Fight Live, too. I don't understand how this slipped through the cracks, but a lot of people on our message board weren't aware that it was available at Go Fight Live. The first two Pro Wrestling Respect shows are available $5 each to download on Go Fight Live. And they'll be available elsewhere, too, but that's in the works, so I'll update everybody on that on WrestlingRoundtable.com when it becomes available. One more match I want to hear about before we move on. The champion of AAW, Silas Young, Mr. Lisp, against Raven in the main event.
This was fantastic. The build-up for this match was incredible. These guys, they shot some incredible promos against each other prior to the match starting, and Raven was in his top form. I haven't seen Raven this good since ECW. These two just went at it in that cage. There was all kinds of energy, and of course, this being Silas's title defense, he called in all kinds of people to help out with the cage match. And Mason Beck turned heel during this match. And Mason Beck, I know most of you listening probably have never heard of him before. You need to YouTube Mason Beck. This guy is fantastic. This guy could very well be the next big star in professional wrestling. This was a really great match. Raven did a lot of amazing, sick stuff. He just went at it with Silas. I don't want to spoil the ending, but Mrs. Silas, who is Val Malone, she got involved in the match too, and she's a force to be reckoned with herself. AAW knows how to put on a stellar show. When you go there, it's just as good as if you were to go to a WWE or a TNA event or a WCW event during their heyday, not the end years. They put a lot of effort into their production style. I really encourage you guys to get the feed.
That's a sell job if I ever heard it. Thanks, Corey. And like I said, you can get that show at GoFightLive.tv. Link over at WrestlingRoundtable.com. But before we move on, it's time for the news. This past Saturday, Ring of Honor announced it was sold by owner Carrie Silken to the Sinclair Broadcasting Group. The month of September will see the debut of the new Ring of Honor television program, which will be syndicated across the Sinclair network of stations. WWE is now requiring all contracted wrestlers to personally purchase and maintain their own medical insurance themselves. Though they are able to write off the cost as a business expense as an independent contractor, they will also be fined or sat out if they do not get the coverage. This comes on the heels of the news of Zuffa providing accident insurance to its 350 contracted fighters, also independent contractors, starting June 1st through the Houston Casualty Insurance Group. The New York Senate voted 42-18 yesterday in approval of Bill S1707A, the bill for MMA regulation in the state. The bill now heads to the New York State Assembly for approval there. TNA's head of talent relations, Terry Taylor, will resign from the promotion after Tuesday, May 31st, so he could spend time preparing his ROH resume. MMA lightweight Hermes Franca turned himself in recently to authorities at the Clackamas County Jail on charges of sexually abusing a female minor at an Oregon Jiu-Jitsu academy. Franca pled not guilty to 7 counts of sex abuse in the first degree and 2 counts of unlawful sexual penetration in the second degree. According to Fox 12 Oregon, the alleged victim is under the age of 14, and the pair of, quote, unlawful penetration charges indicate that Franca used an object or numerous objects on her. What exactly would be lawful sexual penetration? Fight Now TV, a 24-hour-a-day combat sports team channel, just launched today with their first ever broadcast. These are just some of the news stories over at WrestlingRoundtable.com. Much more news. Much more news. Just the facts, man. After all, we were the ones to break the story of the return of Jimmy Jacobs to Ring of Honor. Sometimes we do have some exclusives, people. And either way, the only place to get all the facts that you need to know about what's going on in mixed martial arts and pro wrestling is at WrestlingRoundtable.com. We also have polls over on the site, and 2 of our most recent ones I'd like to read the results of here. Everyone seemed to think that there were going to be these post-WrestleMania cleansing, the spring cleaning of firings that happen here and there, but that never came. But either way, I wanted to see who you thought would be the first to be cut in the post-WrestleMania firings. Alex Riley only got 1% of the vote, and I guess you were right. Seems like he did pretty well for himself last night. More on that later. Tyson Kidd got 3%, Chris Masters 5%, Zack Ryder and Tyler Rex tied at 6%, R-Truth 7%, Trent Beretta 8%, Kurt Hawkins 9%, Michael Tarver 11%, the Usos 2 for 1, 12%, JTG 15%, and the number 1 most likely person to be cut in the post-WrestleMania firings, Primo Colon at 17%. The other poll that we recently had was, what should The Rock have gotten for his birthday on Raw? Rock had his birthday celebration on Raw. What should he have gotten for his birthday? Only 4% said the starring role in Fast and the Furious 6, or would that be 6 Furious? Whatever. Either way, I guess he's going to get it no matter what, so I think that's why it didn't get that many votes. Hornswoggle dressed up as the Pebble only got 7%. What, more people didn't want to see that? A $500 T-shirt, 9%. Now we jump up high, 20% thought that he should have gotten the Hall of Fame plaque. I guess the question is now, would he be inducted next year in Florida? After all, Macho Man probably just jumped up way high in the likelihood percentage of that category. Why not both? That'd be pretty cool. Number 1, what Rock should have gotten for his birthday? 34% said Trish's pie behind her husband's back. Silly people, he probably got that already. More polls are on WrestlingRoundtable.com right now. Should UFC unify the Strikeforce titles with their own? And who should be main eventing in WWE the most? Those polls are over there right now. But the first story I read was about Ring of Honor being bought by the Sinclair Broadcasting Group. Really, at this point, there's more questions than answers. Certainly, the Sinclair Broadcasting Group, they are not a small group at all. They are probably Clear Channel's top rival. And they're not related to Todd Sinclair? Nope, not related at all to referee Todd Sinclair, although several fans did want to crack jokes at the Ring of Honor show where this was announced. Sinclair Broadcasting Group has a strong stock, currently at $9.54, and it's been going up and down. They own affiliate stations for Fox, ABC, My Network TV, CW Network, CBS, and NBC across the country and in Canada. Are you presenting us like, is this some sort of lecture? Well, some people don't know about Sinclair Broadcasting Group. Certainly none of the fans knew what it was. They thought it was a faction at first. So I thought perhaps our listeners would like to know that the new owners of Ring of Honor have a website at sbgi.net. Do you work for them or something? I just want to hear your thoughts on how this affects Ring of Honor going forward. One of the people taking over for Kerry Silken is actually a wrestling fan. The company that owns Ring of Honor produced the TV series Battle of the Belts between 1985 and 1987, which saw the NWA title defended between Ric Flair. This is completely irrelevant to what I just asked you, Corey. Well, I'm just providing information. That's all I'm doing. Not opinion, which is what I asked for. So, I mean, you've been a Ring of Honor fan for a long time. and you always have a lot of opinions on it.
As a fan of 6 years, I am a little bit nervous. I'm not quite sure what to think about it. Most of what I read so far sounds positive, but with that positivity, there is a bit of cautious skepticism. What time slot is Ring of Honor going to be on? Are we going to see the same names that we do? Are we going to see any roster changes? Certainly, it's something that was not really touched on in Jim Cornette's speech, which we'll get to, I guess, in a bit. He pretty much alluded that things would stay the same, but until the press conference in June, I am a little bit concerned. I don't know if they're going to keep Ring of Honor the same or not.
Well, people in Ring of Honor don't even know that. So you're not the only one who's in the dark, but you did mention that he opened the SuperCard of Honor VI show at the Frontier Fieldhouse in Chicago Ridge this past Saturday, talking about just that. Someone who's in the building is who I'd like to bring on right now, Chad Rivera in Dixon, Illinois. Hello, Chad.
Hey, how you doing, Eric? Pleasure meeting you on Saturday. I'm glad you took some time out to sit down and talk with me for a bit. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Always proud to meet fans of the Roundtable. Speaking of which, I want to mention hello to Josh in, well, I guess he's from Chicago Ridge. I met Josh picking up his copy, incidentally, of the Wrestling Road Diaries. Been getting great reviews, and people seem to really like it. I'm very flattered and honored that he asked me to actually sign his copy. But it was a lot of work, and I'm glad it's paying off because people are enjoying it. So if you can go to cultmerch.com or wrestlingroaddiaries.com to pick up your copy, I recommend the 2-disc edition because between that and the first disc, the full documentary, you're going to get pretty much 4 hours worth of content from the final countdown tour for Bryan Danielson. But before we go on to the specifics of SuperCard of Honor VI, Chad, what are your thoughts on the Sinclair Broadcasting Group buying Ring of Honor?
It's only up from here for Ring of Honor. I mean, they had the HDNet TV deal, which I thought was good. Me and about 5 other people had it. And, yeah, I think it's only up from here. I mean, there's no TV previous to this. So, I mean, TV versus no TV is definitely better. Plus, also announced there is, I think it's been in the press release, but if you don't have the station in your area, you can get it on ROHWrestling.com, as Jim Cornette said. Mm-hmm. So that's also good. But, yeah, like I said, I think it's only up from here right now compared to what they had before.
SuperCard of Honor VI was a long show. Show. I don't know about anybody else, but I was starting to feel pretty burnt out by the second half. So unless anyone has a point to make about most of what happened in the first half, I want to skip ahead a little bit to the return of Jimmy Jacobs, the story we broke first, incidentally. Jimmy Jacobs coming back after fulfilling his obligations elsewhere, back now in Ring of Honor for the first time in a long time. Certainly looks different, kind of looks like Adam Lambert's stunt double. What do you think this means as far as the storyline with Steve Corino, which I actually was enjoying this? I want to rehab my image. I don't want to be evil, although I do find it rather weird that his goal for the weekend wasn't to beat somebody up or pin him. It was to stick his thumb up his ass. What'd you think about the whole angle with Jimmy Jacobs coming back as the sponsor, Corey?
This was a great swerve. Nobody saw this coming. And
we actually were talking about it in the chat room after the last show, and people were thinking it was low-key. Someone joked about Xavier. I don't think anybody expected Jimmy Jacobs anywhere.
Nobody in the crowd, certainly. Even up to the time that all the fans were sitting down, the speculation was that it would be low-key. So here comes Jimmy Jacobs, and I think he's a perfect fit considering his past, considering the age of the fall and everything that has happened since then. This is a perfect fit. I'm really excited to see where they go with this.
Chad?
Yeah, considering the backstory of Jimmy Jacobs, I think it fits in good with Evil Person trying to right their wrongs, especially with the Age of the Fall being Jimmy Jacobs' last gimmick that he had with the company. Also, I think it was a great place, too, to reintroduce Jimmy Jacobs, considering the last time he was seen in the Ring of Honor was at End of an Age, when he just walked out into the parking lot. Which
that was also the building where Age of the Fall started, where they almost lost the building with how much blood Jay Briscoe was bleeding when he was hung from the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, he was bleeding like a slaughtered pig if you hung him upside down there. Yeah, I thought it was great. I'm enjoying where this is going, and I'm enjoying Steve Corino. I mean, it's good that a guy that's been in the business that long, not that I'm calling him old by any means, but a guy that's been in the business that long.
Well, he's old and fat, but...
Well, yeah, I guess he did call himself that at the show. But a guy that's in the business that long is constantly, finding ways to put himself in storylines and reinvent himself. I think that's great on his end. I'm really interested in the storyline. I had a feeling it was Jimmy Jacobs. I was hoping it'd be the return of Kevin Steen, but I know to different interviews I've read with Steen that it probably wouldn't be him. I kind of thought it was Jimmy Jacobs myself going into that. I know he's been doing AAW and different things, so I know he's kind of a local guy working there in the indie scene. But yeah, I'm loving it, and I can't wait to see what else happens with it.
Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin wrestled their first singles matches. I can't believe they've been in Ring of Honor pretty much since September, and this is the first singles matches they've had. Their tag matches have been pretty good. Their singles matches, I don't think they were as blow away, let's say, as their tag matches, but up first was Davey Richards and Charlie Haas. How did that measure up, Corey?
I loved how they opened the match with a lot of catch style and a lot of technical wrestling, and then moved straight into these sick kicks and these sick punches. I don't think I've ever seen those two so pleased with a singles match before, specifically Davey. I thought this was a good, hard-hitting match. It was really well played out, and they were so even, you couldn't quite tell who was going to win. It was a really great match.
I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the different styles it did, and, they put on a pretty good clinic there. I also enjoyed the spot where there was about 57 German suplexes being given out between the two of them. From what I've seen, as one of Davey Richards' best matches, probably not, but as one of Charlie Haas's best matches that I've seen, but comparing that, single matches, but I'd say it was probably one of his best that I've seen. But overall, I enjoyed it. It was in probably my top matches of the night.
I preferred the Shelton-Claudio match myself. Benjamin ends up getting huge pops for that pop-up or jump up, whatever. He just jumps straight up with one vertical leap to the top rope with a belly-to-belly superplex. It's an awesome spot to see, and Claudio is one of my favorites. I just think overall package, he's really good. Of course, Benjamin was a favorite of most Roundtable fans at least years ago. How do you think that match went, Corey?
I liked this match a lot. I really love how Claudio has this incredible timing about him, where for the first part of the match, he pretty much dominated. I loved that spot where he was quietly choking Shelton with his foot, but the referee is facing him, and Claudio's like, "What? I'm not doing anything." I love how Claudio plays up to the crowd. The jump that Shelton made, that was just beautiful. Shelton is a very beautiful wrestler to watch. I don't mean that in a homo way. I mean that just in an artistic sense.
Do you have a penis?
No, of course not. I'm not Shayna.
Why would that be a homo way then?
Moving ahead. Artistically, I thought this was a beautiful match. I really love how the two of them mesh in the ring. I hope that they have another match soon.
I enjoyed the match.
In a homo way?
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. Both guys are in the most, in the, pretty good physical condition, no homo. But, no, I enjoyed the Haas and Davey match a little bit better myself. I enjoy how Claudio plays up to the crowd, but I don't know, maybe Corey can chime in on this, or maybe you, Eric, since you were at the show, obviously. When they chant, "Hey," after everything he does, I mean, it's fun at first, but the novelty kind of wears off for me, and it kind of gets a little away from the match. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Actually, I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's just a cute thing that fans do to annoy the heel. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I can see that, but I mean, from going to the shows all the time, they keep going. I don't know, it kind of gets under my skin a little bit, and maybe takes a little out of the match for me if I'm trying to watch the match as a whole when you got people hollering in your ear all the time. But,
well, you're asking someone who loves the Twinkies chant too, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
That's true, but I do enjoy that with Sinclair. I love hitting Sinclair, but actually I met him. He's a great guy to meet and talk to. I enjoyed the match. Like I said, I thought Davey Haas was a little better, but not taking anything away from this match. I enjoyed it.
Teresa, our model over at WrestlingRoundtable.com, I guess wasn't that impressed with the First Blood match over in Dearborn as I was, but the street fight in Chicago followed it up. Briscoes getting the win over ANX. I was kind of surprised by that myself. Leading up to this, Jay Briscoe's promo on the video wire was saying, they are not going to accept this match. We're already 2-1 against you boys, and now they're 3-1. So I was a little surprised, but lots of big bumps, lots of blood, good spots, pretty good match. Coriander Ake.
This was very well done. I'm very impressed by how much Rhett Titus has grown since he started with Ring of Honor. He's gone from being one of those wrestlers that people dismiss to being one of the big stars. This guy is just incredible. It's amazing how hardcore he can get considering how young he is. He's just fantastic to watch, and Kenny King was definitely on his top game for this match. I loved how there was no telling if the Briscoes or Kenny and Rhett were going to win this. I really loved when Mark Briscoe got up on the ladder and he did the elbow drop. I thought that was a very beautiful thing. Artistically, it was a beautiful match, even with the blood.
I enjoyed the match. In fact, this was my match of the night. The main event was right up there, too, but I just felt that I got more from this match. Great hardcore brawl. I agree with Corey before about the growth of Rhett Titus and how he's enhanced his character a bit. And I'm going to disagree with Teresa about the Briscoes being a heel. I enjoyed the Briscoes as heel because it seemed like they were getting a little, I don't know, I wasn't really buying them too much as the babyface, not taking away anything for the ring work, but I enjoyed them more as a heel. It was a little awkward at times because I was sitting behind a row of African Americans.
Prince Nana?
No, not Prince Nana. During the match, it was Jay, I think, said to Mark, and then when he put the chain around Kenny King's neck, let's lynch this motherfucker. And it was kind of awkward for a little bit. Overall, though, I thought the match was good spots.
Two guys wearing Confederate flags using a chain to hang a black man. Nothing racist about that.
Oh, no, not at all. I believe some of the more southern people would enjoy that. And other than that little thing, I thought it was a great match, good spots. It kept the whole crowd into it. And our section, that was the only match where everybody was standing on their feet through the whole match, and you can usually tell by what different times I've gone to Chicago Ridge that when you have or probably anywhere, when you have the whole arena standing on their feet for the whole match, you just got them in the palm of your hands. I enjoyed it. That was my match of the night.
In a rematch from Final Battle, it was Eddie Edwards defending against Roderick Strong, the former champion. Eddie Edwards' first title defense in Chicago. They did an angle after the match with him challenging Davey Richards because the whole angle is Davey thinks he's good enough to win the championship but doesn't want to do it now because he doesn't want to hurt Eddie. But they keep accidentally hitting each other in tag matches like we saw in Dearborn, and I guess that's setting this up. Eddie said, if you don't accept my challenge, he quits. So, obviously that's setting up a match. But this one-on-one, how did it turn out, Corey? Eddie's first defense in Chicago.
I thought this was a good match, too. I'm very glad, actually, that Eddie retained. I do want to see him fight Davey now that they've set this all up. This was a fun match. This was a good match. It was very technical. And definitely worth the DVD buy once the DVD comes out.
Yeah, it was a great match. They definitely turned up the stiffness and intensity of it. I enjoyed it. Afterwards with Davey and Eddie, I mean, I was a little kind of confused considering that Davey was kind of hesitant to accept the request. Considering the last, couple weeks, they were kind of almost hinting at a breakup or split from that. And I almost wish that they did that instead of like a mutual respect type of thing. Because I always like when tag teams, when they break up and then there's this feud with all this history behind it. But, I mean, I can see where this would go. It was a great match, great technical match. I can't say anything more. I mean, if you enjoy different matches with the technical things like the last match with Davey versus Daniels, then you'll definitely enjoy this. Probably the best technical match of the night.
Well, thanks a lot, Chad, for sharing your views live. We always are interested in hearing live correspondence, and we'll have another one later for Over the Edge. But before we move on, I want to hear some of your calls, so let's see who is on the line first. Renato in New York, hello. Lots of New York calls.
Yes, I want to touch on the TNA.
Impact Wrestling!
Yes, I mean, as far as Impact goes, my main problem is when people complain about TNA, they think that TNA has to be WWE, and I don't think TNA has to be that. I think TNA can be a good second option, but let's be realistic. It's never going to be on the level of WWE. It's never going to be on the level of WCW. It's never going to be on the cult level that ECW was. TNA is just a good second option from when you don't want to watch the PG stuff on WWE, when you want to watch the beautiful people, the knockouts, the X Division. It doesn't have to be Monday Night War thing for it to be successful. It really bothers me when people complain about TNA not putting out new stars, but when they do try to do that, and the same goes for WWE, when they try to put new stars out, people reject new stars the way they rejected when Rey Mysterio won the belt. They said the only reason he won it was because of Eddie Guerrero. When Sheamus gets the belt, they reject him. He gets put back to the mid-card. So my problem is when they try to put new stars out, people really don't give the new stars a chance to develop.
Well, last time, speaking of new stars, a new champion, briefly, that we talked about was Christian, and of course there was a lot of argument and debate about that. Some people think that everyone else, the majority, were overreacting, and they had their point that it was very upsetting and they shouldn't have done it. Christian deserved it and blah, blah, blah. First of all, if you're going to take that stance, I'm pretty neutral on it myself. I don't really care about either one of them. I just know from a numbers point of view it kind of makes more sense, but Smackdown, did dip with that show. It might have had some competition with an NBA game or some shit, but it's slowly crept up a little bit. However, to argue with myself, I guess, I did think it was probably money with Christian getting the belt because of Edge's retirement, essentially, and the goodwill with that. If they had just maybe built it up a little more, they could have had a little better payoff. But Christian, he does have some following. But personally, myself, never saw him as a main eventer. I was a fan of his as a upper mid-card heel, let's say in like 04, Intercontinental type level when he was with Tomko. I enjoyed that. Main eventer, not so much. But I did want to share this comment from Henley is Watching You on YouTube. On our last show, he said, the comment suggesting that Orton should have beaten Christian because he's the bigger draw have been proven to be false now that the SmackDown ratings have tanked since. Not like that's a big change. Orton didn't draw great ratings on Raw last year as champion either. It's not about who's a bigger name. It's about who is a bigger name now. They could have gotten a couple months out of Christian as their top guy, and they wouldn't be wasting a resource, the emotion from Edge's departure. Thought that was an interesting comment. More New York. Enzenois. Hello.
I heard that SuperCard of Honor VI is pretty solid, so I might look into buying that DVD when it comes out.
Are you going to go to the next New York show?
Oh, that most definitely. Got my tickets. I'm in the first row balcony. Me and 3 of my friends will be there checking it out. Best in the World 2011. As far as the ROH being bought by Sinclair, well, at least they've got someone paying them now. I mean, at least they've got some money coming in. That's what I think is most important because you can only pay out of pocket so long before you expend yourself into the toilet, so on and so forth. So if it works out for them, it works out for them. I know they'll always have pay-per-view, which works. From what I've heard, the numbers are pretty good. And the DVD sales, as crazy as they might seem, are actually pretty solid. I got a couple of DVDs myself. So if it works for them, kudos to them. Maybe they'll open some doors for others. We'll see. The only other thing I wanted to throw in was my memories of Macho Man.
Sure.
I'll tell you, big fan since I was 4 years old. I've been watching wrestling since I was 1987. My favorite angle was his stuff with Jake Roberts. I think that was just really good. Solid stuff, good versus evil, that type of thing. Or like it was funny, I guess, when I look back at it because it came full circle. There's a time when they're both heels and they were digging each other as a tag team. Then all of a sudden, Jake Roberts goes evil. Macho Man's this figurehead. He's a nice guy. And then Jake Roberts is pulling a Cobra out, and it's like, oh, my goodness. I got to go against this guy. And the thing is, they're both, I guess, a little off-kilter and intense in their delivery. While one is more of a sullen, quiet type. The other's very loud, outspoken, intense type that's ready to punch your face in. So it's like, they're just, come get me. They're both coming after you, and you got that toreador moving out of the way. That's how I kind of saw it. Now, he'll be missed. I like the tribute they put out there. The fact they acknowledged him is also pretty cool. And
they had to. Everyone else has.
Just about. Maybe they'll put him in the Hall of Fame this year. I don't know. I mean, they technically should have done that with Owen, but they've dodged that bullet a bunch of times already, so who knows for sure. I guess that's pretty much all I got to throw in there. Good show as always. I'll listen to the rest of it tomorrow at work, and have a good night.
Thanks, Enzenois. You're going to listen to it at work, like you said, and you can get the entire series of the Wrestling Roundtable, every show we've ever done. 50 video shows, and, geez, we're on our 29th radio show. They're all available at WrestlingRoundtablePodcast.com. If you open up iTunes, type in Wrestling Roundtable, and you can get it there. In fact, Chad, who was just on our line talking about Ring of Honor, was listening to the Invasion show in his car on his way home after SuperCard of Honor. So if you've got a long trip, get a whole shitload of our shows over at iTunes. So thanks, Will Vafides, for getting those up. And the other point I wanted to make about Christian winning the title, people can no longer make the argument, just so you know, that he's been there a long time. That doesn't mean he deserves it. To quote Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, Deserve's got nothing to do with it. Just because he's been there a long time doesn't mean shit, because you can make the same argument for Mark Henry. So there. Amato in San Antonio, hello.
Hello, Eric. Hello, guys. It's my first radio show in quite some time. Been taking care of a lot of stuff, and I'm happy to be back on. I had two things. One was the Ring of Honor being bought out by Sinclair. Everyone's being real positive about it. It makes the business better because people who don't watch Ring of Honor will start watching it. If they can't get it, if they watch anything they can get their hands on. It's like back in the day when you were only able to watch ECW when you're swapping tapes, ECW tapes. How you used to mention that was the only way y'all got to watch it back then. It's only good for the business. You have another option to go to, back like when you had the territories. I think it's really good for the business.
We'll see. What's the second thing on your mind?
The whole Randy Orton Christian thing. Everyone's being real negative about the fact that Orton has the title. Maybe he's a bigger draw because he feuded with Cena and Triple H and stuff like that.
Can you believe Orton's been on TV for 9 years already?
And he's had the belt 8 times.
Well, I mean, Jim Ross just blogged, Randy Orton's best days are ahead of him. Really? After 9 years? I think we've seen just about all we're going to see after Orton. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see how it's up from here. But as you were saying, Amato?
One of those things was Christian got the belt because Edge retired, so it was kind of like the whole thing with Ray getting the title because Eddie wasn't around anymore. And I love how people are being like, oh, Christian deserved this. Just like Eric saying, Christian deserved the title. He didn't need to take it. I honestly think if they wanted Christian to have the title, they already knew Del Rio was going to be on Raw, so they wanted Christian to win it so everyone could be like, oh, he won it. They probably could have dragged out that storyline and had Christian beat Orton on SmackDown clean and then, gave them the pay-per-view and then Orton beat him on pay-per-view, so people can watch Christian try to hold on to the title. But, that's me. I think Orton, he's better on the mic than Christian. I don't like the whole having facial hair thing because he's not that. I don't think it's a good look for him.
Well, in Jericho's book, he shared the story that when he was undisputed champion, Vince McMahon was with him either in catering or backstage somewhere passing by and made the comment, the business is in the toilet when Chris Jericho's the champion. Kind of feel that way with Christian. Edge's retirement and the lack of, big stars in their eyes, it seems like he almost got it by default in a way. 301 area code, name and location, please.
Brainbuster. I'm from Maryland.
Well, thanks for giving us your real name, Brainbuster. What's on your
My Twitter name, dude. I know Corey.
Hey, Brainbuster.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right.
That's good. Yeah, I just wanted to touch really quick on the whole Christian thing.
You mean Judgment Day on Saturday?
Oh,
religious
no.
joke.
Hey,
all right, party for one.
Dude, Christian was never on Vince's list, really. I've always heard that something about McMahon not liking Christian, so I'm sure that didn't help his case at all.
Okay. I always thought he looked like he had AIDS. 909 area code, name and location.
Royce Murray from Pomona, California.
All right, a California call. Glad to get away from the East Coast. What's on your mind?
I just want to talk about the whole Christian thing and how people are kind of complaining about it, but people seem to forget about his jump to TNA, how he kind of usurped that from Monty Brown in the first place, and nobody bitched about that.
Oh, I'm bitching about that. Fuck that. Monty Brown was supposed to be the champion, goddammit.
Well, nobody complained about that. Monty Brown was way more over and talented and just charismatic than Christian ever was.
Well, all my writings at the time reflected that, so maybe I'm the only one, along with, Rodney and Lawrence in the pre-Roundtable days, but I was always upset about that. But continue.
That wasn't really, people kind of complaining about Orton usurped Christian's belt. It wasn't really Christian's belt to have in the first place. It seemed like it was always supposed to be Del Rio's turn.
Fucking right.
But Edge kind of effed that up for everyone, and they had to panic and put Mysterio on Raw for some reason because we need Mexicans on Raw for some reason. I never really felt Christian as a main eventer, or Edge either, but that's a whole nother story.
My sentiments exactly. But some of these names that we've talked about, June 5th came up before. Well, June 5th, aside from a date for Teresa, is a date for the Roundtable because we'll be taping our next set of shows. I can tell you now that the first show will cover Edge's retirement and looking back at his career, and we'll also be remembering the Macho Man Randy Savage. I want to bring on now Mark Paul. Hello, Mark. You're out in Oregon, aren't you?
Yeah, far, far away. Yeah, I know.
That's cool. This is the Internet. It's worldwide. Sometimes we have callers from the UK or listeners in the UK staying up to 4 or 5 in the morning to listen to this, so thanks for doing that. But you attended the Over the Limit pay-per-view this past Sunday, and that's what we're going to move on to now. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the opener for the pay-per-view. Of course, Danielson, the home state boy, was relegated to a dark match.
Where he choked out Drew McIntyre.
Opener. Seriously, and I mean seriously, over to the crowd. Not many people, I'm guessing, knew him from being from the area, but I seriously believe that 90% of the crowd was chanting him during the dark match. It was like deafening almost, that they had the Daniel Bryan chant going. The Northwest is a very smart crowd. I've been to 5 events for WWE and WCW. Every time the crowd is very smart and knows what they're looking for. And that match actually was a pretty good match. Drew did some nice stuff. I don't remember the whole match per se because I had a 4-year-old behind me yelling for Drew McIntyre, which confused me. But it was a very well-done match. Drew did show more charisma in that match than he normally does on TV as he looked at the crowd a little bit more and played it more. But I think it's just that he doesn't seem confident overall with his ability all the time.
Well, he got a great reaction, Danielson did, and it sounded like a good start to the night. But by the end of the night, I don't know how it was live, Mark, but man, the reviews for this show were awful. So I want to get down to the details and find out what happened, because right in the opener, R-Truth against Mysterio sounds good on paper, but how did it pan out?
The match itself was actually very hot. The crowd hated Truth, and not in an X-Pac way, but actually a pretty good heel reaction. Everybody was invested into it. The place just died. I mean, completely died when Mysterio lost. I mean, it was like he won on just one move. I mean, he didn't kick out of that. Wow, what's this night going to be like? And it seemed to set the life out of the crowd a little bit. Because it was a great win for Truth. The Truth needs it. They're going to push him as high as it looks like they're going to. But for Mysterio to go out to that move that quick doesn't seem right.
Yeah, this match should not have taken place at all. There was very little build-up for it. The match does not make sense. R-Truth is a heel.
Who needs build-up? Why can't you have a match for the sake of having a match sometimes? Why does everything need a storyline?
Because this is a pay-per-view where you've charged people $50+ for it. That's why.
So what? They built WrestleManias on mid-cards filled with that sort of stuff.
No, I'm sorry. I think that for $54.95 for the pay-per-view, there better damn well be a good storyline.
They're charging that much for fucking pay-per-views now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
$94.95, I bet damn well see a good storyline, even for the opening match.
Are you talking like that for R-Truth right now?
No, I'm talking like that from somebody who is broke. You got broke wrestling fans. You cannot screw around. For $54, you better have a solid card from top to bottom. If you're going to have 6 or 7 matches, however many this was, you got to have a solid match every time. And it has to have a solid build to it.
This sounded more solid like a bowel movement.
Oh, it was a solid bowel movement, and that's exactly what happened to a majority of the people I know who watched the pay-per-view and then called DirecTV for their money back.
Yeah, good luck on that one. It's a shame because on paper, like I said, most of these matches seem pretty good. And moving on, Wade Barrett, Intercontinental Champion, defending against Ezekiel Jackson, ending in a DQ. How did that turn out? This, I guess, now rare Intercontinental title match on pay-per-view.
This was on the heels of, as I said, the crowd being deflated by the finish of the R-Truth match. And I'll tell you this much, this crowd could care less about this match, even if you paid them to see it. This was a dead crowd, not because the crowd didn't want to see wrestling. This was an uneventful match. This is a match that you were in one of two ways, either a new Intercontinental Champion or a DQ finish. Right when I didn't see his buddies come out with Barrett, we knew it was probably a DQ match. It was bad enough that on the 5th body slam in a row, yes, 5 straight body slams by Zeke, the crowd finally woke up. Basically, we started counting with it. And we even started counting to 8 when we did 3 more after the match. It showed the variety of moves in this match. It was punching, kicking, body slams, an elbow drop, I remember, and a DQ. And a clothesline. Zeke did a clothesline, yay. I'm normally a Zeke fan, but this leaves me not watching this either guy right now.
Sin Cara's, I believe, pay-per-view debut, Sin Cara and Chavo on pay-per-view, they seem to be experimenting with the lighting during Sin Cara matches. Unfortunately, as much potential as there is there, I don't know if anybody else feels like a lot of Sin Cara is getting lost in translation as far as his execution of moves, but lots of botches seem to be going on. Sucks, because you want him to do well, but they obviously put Chavo in there because he grew up in the Mexican style, much like they put him against Mysterio in Mysterio's first TV match on Smackdown back in 2002. Chavo's, I guess, the go-to guy for this sort of thing, and how did it pan out, Mark?
Well, the crowd actually, you may not believe this, but he was seriously over. Sin Cara is over as you can be. They had a chant going right when he was coming to the ring. They popped loud for his entrance. As like before the end of the match, where the botched finish, I don't know if he was going to go for his armbar finisher or if he was going for some variation of a Frankensteiner. It just made everybody go, what? He actually had the royal fall to actually pin him after that horrible of a botch. Made everybody go, okay, now what did we just watch? And why are we investing this guy? And everybody up where I was sitting, I was in the 100 levels just behind the coal mine, like about 10, 15 rows back. Did not like how this went because it didn't show any creativity to us. A lot of the moves seemed rehearsed and done before, and then when it looked like we're going to have a cool ending, it gets botched, and instead of going to a plan B, he actually pins him, which I hope Chavo's injured for his sake because he has a lot of promise, but no, it wasn't. It was just a dud match.
Coming off the heels of a greatly reviewed match on SmackDown against Daniel Bryan, Danielson, American Dragon, whatever the hell you want to call him, Corey, how do you think this one matched up?
I do not like the lighting effect that they had for Sin Cara. At some point, it looked almost like they wanted to turn the lights the hell off. This was a botch-tastic match. It seems like neither of these wrestlers really wanted to do a good job. They were a little bit slow in some parts, and I can't help but notice that Sin Cara does not run as much as he trots, like a light jog. And when you're trying to sell somebody as a huge superhero-type wrestler, a light jog is not what you're supposed to do. This match just aggravated the hell out of me, because I was staring at this going, okay, I watched Chavo when he was in WCW. I watched Sin Cara when he was just mystical in CMLL. I know that on paper, this should be a very good match. Why are you botching every single move under the sun, including simple bumps? You can't even take a bump right. This match really had me losing faith. I'm glad that the live crowd appreciated it, because for those of us at home, it stunk. And the lights, that needs to go. That shit needs to stop.
Big Show and Kane defended the tag belts against CM Punk and Mason Ryan. One of these things is not like the other. Take a guess which one. How did it work out live, Mark?
Del Rio had his promo right before this match, and he is as over as Punk, and I mean that seriously. The guy got a face pop from I don't know where. It's like the crowd was okay, we're about to get the tag team title match coming up after the promo with the guys backstage. Yay. We forget that he has his announcer in the ring. So the crowd was excited, happy. We laughed at the Canada joke. Kane comes out, makes this joke about the rapture not happening. And then the match happens, and God bless Punk. His tribute to Savage was about the highlight of the night. He tried his butt off to make this match work. You could tell he was doing everything he could do, from running away to being as heelish as he can, but when you have a guy who doesn't know how to work a match as a tag team partner and two big guys who can't move anymore, it's not a fun match to watch. This was over easily. No one thought there was any chance Punk was going to win, but everybody enjoyed him being around.
Randy Orton defended the belt against Christian, somewhat dashing hopes for many fans that Christian would get the title back. Who knows if that'll ever happen, but how did the title match get over with the live audience, Mark?
I had the pleasure of seeing Spring Stampede back in '99 live.
Oh, that's an awesome show, too.
And this is better than the Mysterio-Kidman match that was there.
Really?
Which was one of the best matches I've seen live. This match had the two-face reaction that felt more like people were combating each other. You had all the smart marks who were all over Christian, like including myself. Then you had all the kids cheering for Orton. It was worth it. It made me feel happy to be there. It made it worth the trip to see this match. Even though it wasn't as good as the match they had on TV in a lot of ways, it was better because it was given more time. The faking the moves of each other were planned perfectly. And the teasing of Christian possibly going heel, and at least for now not, was perfect because I've seen too many times where if you're going to do a heel turn, right after you make the big loss, you get desperate and you do it. Then, and what would in the right mind man would go, I just got my butt beat by this guy. Why would I want to piss him off more when I'm hurting? Why not wait till he doesn't expect it? And, I mean, you could tell Orton was expecting him to come back in the ring and beat him up, but he doesn't. And it leads for a future storyline that could be a lot of fun, especially if they don't turn Christian and make everybody think he is. And what if, I don't know, Orton turns? It's quite possible. If Christian's getting this kind of response, and Orton turning back to heel is not impossible as soon as this movie thing goes away.
This match, again, aggravated me. This felt like a standard Smackdown match. I do not think Randy makes a very good face. I think he's much better as a heel. I did not like anything about this match, and I also didn't like the little segment afterwards where Christian is like, do I leave the ring? Do I not leave the ring? I want to shake your hand. I don't want to shake your hand. I don't like that they're trying to set up Christian as a heel. I think Christian needs to be a face, especially since they just ruined his former tag team partner, Edge. They're going about this the wrong way. This was just not at all a good match.
All right, two different views on the same match. Moving on, Jerry Lawler defeating Michael Cole in a Kiss My Foot match, bringing it back from In Your House back in '95, and Bret Hart making a cameo for it. Was this a proper blow-off that they maybe should have done at WrestleMania, Corey?
Yeah, we could have done without the Kiss My Foot part, but at the very least, Cole lost, and they didn't change it, and it was kind of cute how they brought Bret Hart in. Of course, explaining that to my younger brother was an interesting little story. The end part with Eve could have been left out, and the whole thing with JR dumping barbecue sauce on Cole, that was a little bit odd. But at the very least, I'm happy that it looks like this is the end of the storyline, and Jerry the King Lawler won.
This match was fun, and we knew who was going to win, but when he couldn't get out of his match, he was in the suit. There was nobody to come save Cole, thank God. We knew this was a blow-off. Everybody popped greatly for both JR and Hart. The crowd had no idea what was going on with that. We had people guessing Karma's going to come out because she had looked at him once and we thought, okay, here's when she's finally going to come out. When Hart's music played, the whole place just lost its lid. Everybody up there, at least, up in the Northwest, remembers him coming through back in the day doing house shows and never got to see him on TV on his main matches because they weren't doing pay-per-views in the Northwest in the 90s. And to see him come out...
Because of all the drug testing going on in Oregon.
No kidding. Yeah, that's the funny joke. But
it's not a joke. That's legit.
Oh yeah, it's just one of the reasons why wrestling isn't viewed very highly in Oregon anymore at all because they basically took it out of it.
Got it.
So the sharpshooter and the kiss the foot part. Yes, it was gross. Yes, it was numbing pretty much. It gave us a feeling like, okay, at least they're trying something here to make this worth our time because we knew that Cole was going to lose or it's going to be another 3 months of crap. And
it's the Groundhog Day of wrestling angles.
Pretty much it was. I mean, WrestleMania was the dumbest reversal in the history of the world when it didn't need the reversal, and then you go on to the next match and you bring JR into it, and it makes that crap because JR's not a wrestler, Cole's not a wrestler, or is half the wrestler he used to be, and Swagger's stuck in this angle, and then you take everything out of there and you leave it with just Cole and just Lawler, and it actually worked out pretty well, which scares me.
If you hate John Cena, you probably hated the finish of the main event because Cena retained his belt against The Miz, the, I guess, reproduction of the Rock Mankind Rumble 99 finish of trying to play the audio but didn't work this time, I guess. That's the spin on it, of Cena saying I quit or whatever. Didn't pan out, and Miz ended up tapping to the STF or STFU, I guess, if you prefer. What do you think about the main event, Corey? Cena defeating The Miz.
I noticed that if you break up the strongest points of this match, they actually fit in perfectly with Rihanna's song S&M. And that's about what this match was. Most of the match consisted of Miz whipping Cena with a kendo stick, whipping him with a belt he took off of somebody's pants. And Cena did not react the way you would expect. In most matches where you see whippings occur, the guy goes, ow, ow, or he does the Tommy Dreamer, thank you, sir, may I have another? And that would have been really cool. But what John Cena did was like, ooh, ow, which was a little bit odd considering that there were children not only in the crowd but involved in the match. And that's a spot that should have been taken out, where Miz goes to these two kids who can't act if today was the last day on Earth. Oh, it's not. And he was like, why don't you tell your hero to quit? And these poor little children can't act. They look up and they're like, no, we don't want Cena to quit. He will never quit. To you? Look into the camera. Really? The majority of this match was Cena crawling around and being whipped, and it looked like a very erotic video. And then all of a sudden, just when it looks its bleakest, it looks like, they're going to let the little cell phone tape go from Alex Riley. Up pops Super Cena. Whips off his belt, starts whipping Miz, and Miz is like, ow, stop it, ow.
Mark, what was it like live?
The crowd was was once again divided on this. I'm guessing 60-40 Cena. Of the 40% there, most of them just wanted Cena to lose. Not necessarily Miz fans, because a Miz sign outside when we were showing off signs got heavily booed. So I'm guessing this match would have been better if they would have not done a 2-on-1 handicap match version of this type of match. But it was a nice idea of a twist, just using Alex Riley, whose best finishing moves he ever put on himself is someone else's move done to him, is not the person you put on fear to anybody. And then you have Miz, who's been booked worse than Sheamus was last year, coming out here, and as Corey said, the whipping part was acted pretty badly. Now, it didn't look like it was painful. And the way he reacted when he was at least tied up on the ropes and being whipped by the belt there was painful, but everything else was horribly done, including the belt shot by Riley on Miz, where he missed Miz completely, and we saw it way up. Not way up, but people way up were like going, okay, no reaction. This was very choreographed, did not give us a chance to be outside of the moment and into the match. Once the tape thing happened, the crowd actually was weirded out. They were actually going to give Miz the title back after all that crap. Something doesn't seem right. And when they went as far as announcing he was a new champion, the crowd, the Cena fans were just gone. They were crying from kids. We heard things, and then they changed it. It's like, so now WWE has sent themselves into the we're not going to make kids cry anymore phase of their 1995 reboot.
That seems to be the direction they're going in. And thanks, Mark, for giving us your live account of Over the Limit. But that's going to bleed over into the next night, Monday night on Raw, which is another show that I don't know if mixed reviews is the right word, because I think that and the pay-per-view before it are generally getting bad reviews. But you were in the chat room, Will Brooks, during this show that people were talking about, specifically Karma's angle with the Divas, I guess Bret Hart's cameo, and lots of other things they did on Monday Night Raw. So what are your thoughts on the show that happened last night?
Leave Karma alone, okay, because nobody knows this, but she's currently carrying my child, and that's why she's taking time off. People, leave her alone, okay? It's interracial love at its finest. Let it go.
Will Vafides, thoughts on Raw last night?
I liked it. I thought it was an above-average Raw. Karma thing, there's rumors going around that apparently she's being taken off TV, which is why they did that. I loved Alex Riley. He got over big time with that crowd. Mm-hmm. He got over you, too. I thought that was a great segment. Miz has been on a downcline lately, but I think that with Riley, exploding like that, it's like the Virgil against Ted DiBiase kind of gimmick. I was just going to say that.
That's a good analogy. I like it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was exactly like that. I'm sure these two are going to have some kind of a blow-off match, which I'm sure in the end, Miz is probably going to get the best of him. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. That was good. Owen Hart died 12 years earlier on that same day. So it was kind of ironic to see Bret on Raw. And I broke down during the Macho Man's tribute video.
I really did break down. That's a guy that's my childhood hero. The main reason why I watched Raw was for that, just to see that 3 minutes.
Was it weird that they didn't show any WCW Macho Man at all, though, in that clip?
There were a couple clips. There were a couple clips, but no NWO.
I saw one. That was it.
No, there were a couple sprinkled throughout.
Face it, it's WWE that got him on the mat. WCW didn't do much with him. Trust me.
But he was still effective in WCW. That wasn't like
I agree with you, but the greatest footage that Macho Man's ever done in his career is in WWE. That's just the bottom line. The package, though, was really nice. I liked R-Truth. I like the fact that R-Truth doesn't come out to an entrance theme song, which I think even helps him even more to get over.
I agree.
Overall, I thought Raw was better. It's a progression of building some talent that hasn't really gotten the chance. And I thought CM Punk's tribute to the stars on his trousers was pretty good. I thought it was a good Raw. I liked it. I was still entertained.
I was funny, though, when he was beating up The Miz. Did it remind anybody else of when Ric Flair used to get beat up on, like, TBS, when he used to wear suits and get beat up and his suit be all ripped off and everything?
Yeah.
I kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah, it did. And I thought that was another added bonus to it. That he's ripping it up. He was taking it to him. Like, it was really good.
What's with the Big Show getting run over by a car? I don't get, especially a small car like that. Don't you think a small car like that hitting the Big Show would hurt the car more than hurt the Big Show?
He used to lift cars on Raw, not get run over.
I don't know why they recycled that bad thing from Royal Rumble 99 with Mick Foley and The Rock. I don't know why they recycled that. I mean, it really didn't work the second time around like it did this first time.
Well, Will Vafidas, you mentioned the Macho Man tribute, and wanted to save the best for last here. I did mention that our next taping will be doing an entire segment or two on the Macho Man and looking back, so I know we're going to give lots of our thoughts then, but we can't go through this show without mentioning the Macho Man because one of the biggest stars ever, like you said, Will, star from our childhood, meant a lot to a lot of people. And I can't believe that there's a lot of people, and I've always said about the show that what's great about the show is it's all things for all people, whether you just started watching, you've been watching forever, you like this style of wrestling, you don't like this style of wrestling, whatever. Past, present, future, I think we have something for everybody. But there is some fans on our board or listening who haven't even seen the Macho Man. It's maybe started in the Monday Night Wars sort of era or after and never even saw him. So I think when people listen to our recollections, they hear how genuine it is. And I want to throw it out to some of the callers. I'm sure you have some things to say about Macho Man. So Ben in Austin, Texas, you're on.
Yeah, I was sad to hear about the Macho Man's passing. I remember watching him in the WCW Monday Nitro days, beating Ric Flair for the title. I knew him more from his WCW days than I did his WWE days because I was not even alive during his run in the late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually have a question in general that sort of is on my mind that I want to ask you, Eric, since you're a very nuanced when it comes to wrestling and MMA. I had a friend of mine come to me, and I was telling him I'm watching an MMA fight, and he said, oh, it's just two knuckleheads going in the ring beating each other up.
Right.
I had another friend come to me and he said, oh, you only watch wrestling for the storyline. And I was stuck because I was trying to explain to them, well, no, there's a sort of art form to a wrestling match or an MMA fight. So I guess how would you explain that to somebody who just sees it as a bloodfest or just soap operas but for men?
Well, as far as MMA, it's a completely outdated concept. This is far from the days of a fighting style being bar brawling like Tank Abbott. These are multi-trained athletes, in some cases specifically disciplined. I think that's why people liked Lyoto Machida, because he was a throwback to the old days of UFC where it was people with specific disciplines, but it's not like that anymore. Karate schools are closing up because they're diversifying. It's not just Taekwondo school, a karate school, or boxing school. It's mixed martial arts. So it's dabbing in a little bit here and there. And if you've performed any of it, I don't think you even need to have performed any of it to be able to appreciate the athleticism and the training that goes into it. Like, if people say an MMA fight is fake or fixed like UFC, because if it was a real fight, if you've seen people fight on the street, it lasts a minute, it's over. It's not two guys drunk after a bar. These are skilled athletes who train months to do this. It's not the same thing. For wrestling, well, wrestling is performance art. There's no other way to really put it because there's ways to tell stories with your body in the ring that are really good. There's different elements that can be appreciated. I don't like when people say so-and-so's a good worker because of this, and this is the only way it's got to be, working the leg and all that bullshit. Hulk Hogan can't be a good worker because he's not Dynamite Kid. It's dumb shit, because both guys are good at two different things. There are exceptions to every rule, of course, and it's very hard to define wrestling in one sort of category because it combines so many elements from so many different art forms. So when it's at its best, it's incredible. Speaking of Macho Man, I've said on the show before, the Macho Man Warrior match is a perfect example because it combined every element, whether it's the aesthetic, the outfits that they specially wore, whether it's the music that they come out to, the physical story in the match actually told as it unfolded. And it was a great story of he drops 5 elbows on him. It's still not enough. And then Warrior does all his finishes on him. And he just utterly destroys him after having that moment where you double thought it because it was more important than the belt. This is also the culmination, mind you, of months of storyline build where Savage wanted the title shot, Warrior wouldn't give it to him, and he cost them the belt because of it. So they ended up with this feud that culminated at WrestleMania with the careers on the line. Of course, it didn't last, but for that night it was great. And then afterwards with, of course, Miss Elizabeth coming in after Sherry turned on Savage, and that coming full circle, just absolutely beautiful storytelling in every single way. So that's wrestling at its best. Hasn't gotten like that lately, but that's another story for another day. So thanks for your question. Let's go back to you, Corey. I know you've got lots of thoughts about the Macho Man. Let's have it.
A lot of people talk about Macho Man's feud with Hulk Hogan, but they also forget that those two made a great tag team as well as the Mega Powers.
Well, that's what set it up.
That's one of my earlier memories of the Macho Man. My mom and I used to love watching the Mega Powers come out. The cohesion in that tag team, the build-up in their storyline, it was just so beautiful to me. And even though I was still a little kid in diapers, I was able to pick up on that right away. Macho Man, he just had this incredible feel to him. He had this beautiful voice to him. Everything he did was just astounding. It was the event, no matter where he worked. He was also an immaculate voice artist. Of course, everybody will bring up Slim Jim.
Immaculate. Okay.
Of course, everybody's going to bring up his Slim Jim ads. I'd like to bring up the voice work that he did for Cartoon Network. He did a lot of charity work for children. He was on an episode of Dexter's Lab in the monkey cartoon as Rasslor. He lended his trademark voice to an episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast as a relative of Space Ghost. He just was all over the place. This is not just a huge loss as a wrestling fan. It's a loss in the entertainment world as well. And it's a testament to how much wrestling still means to America. All of the news stations, all of the entertainment stations.
Still means or used to mean?
It still is. All of the news and entertainment stations stopped when word hit that Macho Man passed away. Every single channel. But that's
exactly what I mean. Still mean versus used to mean. Would all that coverage be given to John Cena? You know what I mean?
Time will tell with John Cena, but with Macho Man, he was such an icon and a wonderful wrestler. Another thing I wanted to bring up was his feud with Diamond Dallas Page in WCW.
Which is really getting lost in the shuffle of all this reminiscing and all the great feuds that he had. Yeah, Hogan, Warrior, Flair, Steamboat, etc. Yeah, but DDP, I think, should be included in that category too. Unfortunately, that gets lost in the shuffle in the latter WCW years, but that was awesome too.
That was a wonderful storyline. Everything about that worked, and the matches, the power that Macho Man brought into that feud with Diamond Dallas Page, that's something that shouldn't be lost. It should be in the forefront. He had amazing feuds with Ric Flair, not just in WWF. He had them in WCW too. He had this cage match with Ric Flair where the two of them just went at it, and Flair kept cheating. He had Woman get involved. He had a crowbar in his boot. He had Arn Anderson get involved, and still Macho Man could not be brought down. This was a force to be reckoned with, and I just don't think the wrestling world is ever going to be the same without him. Even though he hadn't been in wrestling these last few years, he still kept active. One of the last things he did before he passed away, he and his brother opened up a website to Gorgeous George at gorgeousgeorgeenterprises.com, and I saw the site for the first time today, and I've got to admit, I broke down and cried. And that was about an hour before we went to air. It's beautiful. The work that he put into wrestling and outside of wrestling, he put his heart into everything. And even though I never got the chance to meet him, I'm going to miss him just as badly.
Sean from Florida, Macho Man's home state. What's up?
Yeah, kind of hurting on the Macho Man story. I mean, on the Friday, I was just out with my family, and then I just heard the news from my friend, who's actually up in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was shocked. I was almost like, I just really just shut down right there. It was unfortunate because it's all I can just remember from the voice and just the character, the look, matches. Oh, man. I could have cried right there. Just,
it was real heartbreaking.
Yeah, because there are a lot of wrestlers like Eric that we love that is just that I really wanted to meet but never got a chance to, but then I heard they died. It just makes me really sad.
Right.
Especially the memories as well. Because I mostly remember some of Macho Man's moments. Like I wasn't watching a whole lot of the old WWF at the time, but I did like go back and watch some of Macho Man stuff. And I love like Miss Elizabeth's chemistry. Their chemistry together was awesome. I love the wedding. I was really disturbed when he was like feuding with Hogan a bit because I kind of like both those guys, so I kind of like the idea they're both tag teams.
Mm-hmm.
I also like some of the WCW stuff they did, even like the stuff in '99, even with the feud with Dennis Rodman. Because even though that feud was bad, I thought some of the stuff he did was pretty funny.
That match at Road Wild '99 is underrated. It was a good brawl.
It was a good brawl, but it was bad, but it was so bad you could say it's good. Because
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, well, I kind of feeling that Dennis Rodman was not gonna beat the Macho Man. I mean, yeah, celebrities, you think that, with a wrestling company, the celebrity needs to beat the wrestler to make them look good. But Macho Man, I think you can never beat him. You can not beat the Macho Man. The segment where he runs in, when I was after, like, with Dennis Rodman said he's with Gorgeous George, what he does with her, and then he runs into the other room and pushes the table, and he, says, "Did he touch you? Did he touch you?" And he slaps her, and then also, Tori, he slaps Tori, and she's, like, corpsing a little bit. And then that moment is funny.
I can't understand how anybody can say Macho Man has a beautiful voice. I love his voice; it's very distinct. But beautiful, I don't think so. I mean, the guy, man, sounds like he eats gravel for breakfast. How the hell can you really call that he has a beautiful voice? I love his voice again, but not beautiful. Pop and Circumstance will never sound the same to me ever again.
Especially all these kids graduating high school now. They don't even know when we were growing up how it just reminded us of Macho Man. They probably have no context for that. But hopefully they do their research and listen to some of the matches and feuds we recommended. They were really good. You should check them out, especially if you're starting to learn wrestling, maybe as a wrestling student, learning from one of the best and all-time greats, Macho Man Randy Savage. That's going to do it for the Wrestling Roundtable on Blog Talk Radio. Next time, we're going to talk about UFC 130, more martial arts with the Ultimate Fighter finale, and other events going on in mixed martial arts. So for the panel of Will Brooks, Will Vafidez, Mark in Oregon, Chad in Illinois, and Coriander Aiken, Chicago, I'm the host, Eric Santamaria. Join us on WrestlingRoundtable.com for more.